Dashtilik, welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that tells you about this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and the Central Tibetan Administration. Today's headlines. Department of Information and International Relations of Central Tibetan Administration releases 10 facts about the missing Panchen Lama on the occasion of the 22nd anniversary of his enforced disappearance. United States Congressional Delegation raises Tibet with Indian Prime Minister. Back in Washington, D.C., the United States Congressional Delegation briefs Press On Dharamsala Visit and reiterates support for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. Tibet Support Group Liaison Officer attends Europe Regional Meeting in Riga. News from overseas offices of Tibet. On Wednesday this week, on the occasion of the 22nd anniversary of the enforced disappearance of Khyentse Chögyinma, the 11th Panchen Lama of Tibet, the Department of Information and International Relations of Central Tibetan Administration released an exclusive video titled 10 Facts About the Missing Panchen Lama. The video features a rare and exclusive interview with Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, an Indian Member of Parliament, national spokesperson for Indian National Congress, a lawyer and an author, who exposes 10 things about the missing Panchen Lama of Tibet. That includes 5 things about China's continued abduction of the Panchen Lama and 5 things China should know.
Certainly this story shows that truth can be stranger than fiction. A story with mystery, with pathos, with tragedy, and with a remarkable amount of continuing suspense. The Panchen Lama, recognized by the present Dalai Lama in 1995, has vanished, admittedly a prisoner of Chinese abductors. Clearly, this is a major invasion of the fundamental spiritual and religious rights of the Tibetan people. But more than that, it also shows how harsh, how cruel, how dictatorial, and how unrepentant and unrelenting the Chinese have been in their approach not only to the plateau of Tibet, but to all the spiritual and religious rights associated with that movement.
After a series of concerns raised by the United Nations experts, the Chinese government admitted to holding the Panchen Lama and his family for the first time in May 1996. Since then, despite continuous call for information on his whereabouts, Chinese government refused to divulge any information about him, making Khyentse Chögyinma one of the world's longest-serving political prisoners and his case that of an enforced disappearance. On Tuesday this week, Representative Ngorup Dorje of Office of Tibet, Geneva and United Nations Advocacy Officer Dawat Suljim raised the case of Panchen Lama with the United Nations expert members, including the chair of rapporteur of the working groups on enforced and involuntary disappearance. The International Relations Secretary Sonam Nobuthakpo said the overgeneralization and blanket statements by the Chinese government make the case of missing Panchen Lama shrouded in mystery and suspicion. Information Secretary Dajun Shalling called on the like-minded governments to step up efforts in making Chinese government accountable for their actions and in making public the real status of Panchen Lama. The bipartisan United States Congressional Delegation, led by House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi, met with the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, last Thursday in the Indian capital, a day after the hugely successful 2-day visit to Dharamsala. Leader Pelosi, in her press release, have mentioned that in their meetings with top government officials, the delegation expressed gratitude to the government and people of India for hosting His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Dharamsala and for supporting Tibetans living in India. Back in the United States after their visits to India and Nepal, the United States Congressional Delegation led by House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi briefed the press in Washington, D.C. The delegation reiterated support for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. Leader Nancy Pelosi said the chief concern of the delegation was the brutal conduct of the Chinese government to erase the Tibetan identity and that the situation in Tibet is a challenge to the conscience of the world.
The delegation provided us with the wonderful opportunity to see the aspirations of the Tibetan people firsthand, especially in the eyes of the Tibetan school children in Dharamsala. The situation in Tibet is a challenge to the conscience of the world.
Representative Eliot Engel said that the matter of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's succession is a religious one and that Chinese government should stop discussing it.
And also, very, very importantly, the Chinese government should leave discussions of the Dalai Lama's succession, he is 82, to the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan people. They should not impose a house puppet and claim that that person is the successor to the Dalai Lama. It's a religious matter, not a state matter, and it's very clear, I think, that we spoke out and said this.
Representative Jim McGovern said that the trip was to make clear to the Chinese government that the issue of Tibet is not going away and urged the Trump administration to make Tibet a priority.
We believe His Holiness and Tibetans living in exile should be allowed to return home to Tibet and be able to fully practice their religion, celebrate their culture, speak their language, and have genuine autonomous status according to the middle way approach advocated by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We urge President Trump and his administration to make Tibet a priority, appoint a special coordinator for Tibetan issues, and meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Representative Betty McCollum, Representative Joyce Beatty, Representative Judy Chu and Representative Pramila Jayapal urged the governments of the world to speak up against the mistreatment of the Tibetan people by the Chinese government.
That does not see a contradiction.
The 8-member bipartisan delegation led by House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi visited Dharamsala on a 2-day official visit on 9th May. A 3-day Europe regional meeting of Tibet Support Group was held in Latvian capital Riga in early May. The meeting aimed to develop strategies for practical collaboration and to strengthen intergroup relationships, to explore new campaign ideas, to develop strategies and action plans in light of CTA's observing of 2017 as Year of Campaign, and to build capacity of Tibet groups. The meeting, organized by International Tibet Network, was attended by Representative Chömbe Tsering, Office of Tibet, London, and Tibet Support Group Liaison Officer Ms. Sonam Sangmo from Department of Information and International Relations. The Tibet House in Brazil organized a workshop on cultivating emotional balance and microfacial expressions with world-renowned psychologist and emotion researcher Dr. Eva Ekman last Saturday in Sao Paulo. The workshop was attended by 100 professionals and university students. It was a part of contribution towards fulfilling His Holiness's vision of promoting secular ethics in education. That is all for today. We'll be back next week. Thank you for watching Tibet This Week.